lei s'affida, chi le confida, mal cauto il cuore, pur mai non è sente sì felice al pieno, che su quel cielo non li fa amore, la donna è mobile, qual più va il vento, mutava di pensier, di pensier.
All right, I think you should be getting audio now, and I may have to start this over. I think I see what I have done. Um, Hikmet Abbasov, welcome, and can you hear me now? Is this thing on? I hope so. But I'm going to assume that nothing was really audible there, and gonna hope that everything works from here on out. So, welcome back to This is Opera, Mr. Opera, New School Singing, etc., etc. And we have been reading Hints on Singing by Manuel Garcia. And this is the 11th installment of this. And we're getting into the section now about blending the registers. Okay, and thanks, Himmet. I know what I did. I was trying to improve my recordings, and I messed up my actual audio for the live stream. So I have to figure that out a bit better. So this should be fine now, and even actually I should be able to turn myself up a little bit, and this should still be okay. This should still sound, hopefully, should still sound okay. So I have to apologize that we haven't been doing our homework. I guess reading our Manuel Garcia, and then I also have to promise that after we do our homework today, we're gonna do a little bit of fun stuff. I've got Franco Tonelli queued up in the video folder, and I guess we're gonna do a little bullshit inspection, particularly on this circular breathing video that he did, which I was a little bit confused by. But anyway, so section 19, blending the registers. And we're almost done with with the first half of the book, by the way. And so we may be getting through section 1 Whoops. Yeah, we may be getting through section 1 here. And yeah, let's see. So, how are the chest and medium registers to be blended? By passing repeatedly from the chest to the medium and vice versa. This passage will take place on the following exercises. And he's got, basically, he's got here some short intervals, small intervals, and on the same note. Okay. Some notes common to both registers are preserved to facilitate the transit and meet the requirements of particular passages. At the first succession of notes must be short and sung very slowly. Later on, a long succession may reach quarter note equals 100 of metronome. Care must be taken not to aspirate the medium. So let's review this section, I guess. One thing to keep in mind here is that when he says medium, we're supposed to remember. Oh, and now I'm over there. Okay. Oh, jeez. Okay. So medium, and then the thing to remember is that medium equals falsetto. That's what he says earlier in the book, that he was using a different terminology, and he changed his mind. He doesn't like falsetto anymore, and now he's calling it medium. But that should give you an idea that we're not talking about like basses singing their high notes and worrying about passaggio, etc., etc. We're talking about like the... Oh, I guess that's hard for you guys to see. Medium equals falsetto. So we're talking about this, for lack of a better word, female range. We're talking about issues for people who are going into this higher type of singing and into this, what he calls medium or falsetto register, and how to switch registers between the two. But a lot of it's kind of familiar for me as a tenor, even though I'm pretty much sticking to the chest register if I'm reading what Garcia says correctly. And he's talking about this interesting strategy that where you have notes that are common to both registers, you can do exercises essentially changing registers without changing the note. And then you can get good at picking how you're going to sing that note. The way I would put this is, I talk about coordinations. Like you can take a set of actions, and in new school singing, that would be, like a position, motion, and attitude. And you could sort out your position, motion, and attitude. And you could have different attitude, especially, but also different positions on the same pitches, and those could represent different coordinations when you put it all together. And you may not give a name to every coordination, but you have like a memory of it, and it becomes, you can say, an attitude in and of itself. And then you're just able to do that coordination as an attitude. And you could have different areas of your voice, and it's possible for them to overlap. And where they overlap, then it makes a lot of sense to work at being able to sing that pitch either way, because that represents a place where you could kind of get off of one train and get onto another train. It's like, oh, here I could transfer and nobody would know. It would sound like I had one single register all the way up because I covered up that change in the area where registers, as he calls them, overlap. No one's going to notice the change because you didn't change the pitch even. Yeah. And he's saying make sure not to aspirate the medium. So not to, I think what he's saying is be careful about having a breathy falsetto. You'll wreck yourself. And there seems to be a note from Herman Klein here. Although the term mixed tone, voix mixte, is not used by the author, it is obvious that these exercises for blending the lower registers were intended for the express purpose of developing and strengthening this particular tone, which, if helped by correct breathing and well-rounded vowels, will form itself in a perfectly easy and natural manner. Note, Herman Klein. And that's what Herman has, yeah. I think Herman had a lot to do with this, the way this book was laid out. Okay. Breathing in exercises, section 21. How do you regulate the breath when singing exercises? Answer. When the pupil cannot sing an exercise in one breath, he should not take a hurried inspiration in the middle of it, but stop on the first note of a bar, employing the rest in refilling the lungs. Example. We have an example. What is the object of these frequent and long pauses? To accustom the pupil to fill the lungs slowly and amply. A hurried inspiration is noisy, short, and agitated. At first, the pupil may stop after singing the first note of every second bar. Later on, it will suffice to stop after the third or fourth bar. At the outset, the following... Okay, and now we have the following exercise for the... yes, and then this part is... it's cut off. It's interrupted here. It's not a missing page, but it looks like just something missing. But this is a strange exercise, and this is alluding to his belief that the breath should be, I don't know here, quiet and slow, something like that. And the idea is you're not supposed to breathe quickly. Instead, you're supposed to wait for the next opportunity. So I guess you're focusing on timing. But I don't know. In my experience, especially if your acting is a little bit more physical, you can't expect breathing to be so easy. Sometimes you're going to have to make a lot of physical effort to get yourself into position. And some of that effort might actually be like inspiration. And you can actually use breathing in really hard as part of the way you adjust your posture. Those things interact with each other. So strange exercise. I guess it's supposed to make you more thoughtful about your breath. Because now you're gonna have to wait The idea is you sing the scales, and then I guess when you're running out, instead of trying to breathe quickly, you wait. I, um, yeah, strange. And what's strange to me is that he understands breath control. Well, he should understand breath control is going to largely be about timbre control because he noticed that this clear and ringing timbre does not make the flame move. But then he has this brain fart, like he's not able to put that together with, holy crap, these big sounds actually use less air than. So even though it's always true that to make any one coordination bigger, you're gonna have to use more air. But if you switch coordinations, you can wind up getting a whole lot of sound with a whole lot less air. But he noticed that when you sing into a flame with a clear and ringing sound, it doesn't move that flame. There's your breath control. That's why you would be able to sing such a long phrase. It's because you're not using any air. And so that's why it's kind of funny when people are saying don't work hard during your inspiration. You just need breath control. And if you have a combination of being able to inhale very powerfully, which of course allows you to relax when it's a normal easy inhalation, but if you have this ability to inhale powerfully and quickly and explosively, then you can do more all around. With the rest of your voice, you just combine that with clear and ringing timbre or clear and ringing sound. I think he separates sound from timbre, and then you have your long phrases because there's no need for the air to come out. Well, the air doesn't as a part of the sound that you're making. There's not a lot of air coming out. That's your breath control. And so now for the rest of section 1, we have this long series of different exercises that seem to be like no different from anyone else's scales. They're just normal scales. So I think this is about, selling more copies of the book. Well, not more copies, but more pages. Like they get paid, by the page kind of thing. Let's see if we got any comments here. Okay. No, we're good to go. I'm going to keep reading. So up next, we have exercises on light and shade. Now, this section is interesting, if I remember correctly. Exercises on light and shade. Section 26. Question. What is light and shade applied to exercises? Under this title, we comprise prolonged sounds, inflections, forte piano, detached, and legato sounds. At what stage of progress can this study be begun with advantage? When a student can execute the exercises in the preceding pages with correct intonation, purity of timbre, equality of value, and strength at the speed of 100 to 116 beats per minute. What is prolongation? It is the momentary increase of duration given to any single note in a passage composed of notes of equal value. For what is this increase of, for what purpose is this increase of value? It gives support to a sound that might be indistinct and also heightens the musical effects. This may be considered as tempo rubato. How do you apply the fortepiano? Every passage should be given. Every passage should be given very piano, mezzo forte, and with full power, but without violence. When this can be done, the pianoforte should be applied to groups of notes and single notes. Every note having received an accent, the piano and forte ought to be alternate, and afterwards we interchange the accents. Any other exercise of 4, 6, or 8 notes admits of similar combinations. What do you understand by legato and staccato sounds? That these two effects may be combined as has been seen with the piano and forte. Where notes are united in groups, the last note of the group must be quitted as soon as touched. What is the use of all these combinations? They form an abundant source from which the singer may draw the brilliant colors which will give life to his or her style. Note once more that the breath, where needed, must be taken as previously suggested. Okay. Well, this is an interesting section. I think the chief purpose of this is, again, this is commercial. It looks a lot to me like you have these. It's like being a black belt or a brown belt or whatever. You know that you gotta earn your way to doing these exercises by being able to do all those other exercises and at 100 to 116. So the teacher is going to be pronouncing you ready to move on to section 26, exercises of light and shade. So now and we have these different rhythmic variations. And these are commonly used a lot still. Groups of 4 are broken up this way. Da da dee da 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 dee da. Da dee da 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 dee da da. Yeah. So these kinds of exercises are often given like as a way to get coloratura to work, etc., to get fast passages to work. But I guess they're thought of as ornaments here. That's interesting. So I mean, these exercises are worth doing. I mean, don't wait for any particular graduation day to start doing these kinds of exercises. Well, obviously, like Garcia is not going to come and sue you now for doing this too quick. And I'd say that these days, conductors will probably not appreciate you too much for making these kinds of interesting rhythmic changes to your parts. So things today are very much like you have to do it the way it's written. And if you listen to something like if you go here on YouTube and type in Fernando de Lucia, so maybe pull that one up. Let's see here. Not a good place to write this down. Yeah. So if you look this guy up, maybe I should set this up so I can just browse with you guys and we can listen to things on YouTube kind of on the fly. But if you listen to how he does his coloratura and fioritura and stuff, seems like he's doing what Garcia recommends. But if you did that today, you would get sort of laughed out of the rehearsal room. It's not gonna be appreciated too much to be doing this. Yeah, it's now considered oddly not to be historical, but it seems that at some point it was. So it seems like the way that we approach the composer's intentions and what our relationship is to the composer's intentions, like how much do we care about what the composer wanted. I guess there's questions about how historical that is, for me anyway, because they seem to not care as much about what composers wanted as we do today. Today we're always like trying to research and find out, you know, what was the historical practice and any evidence we can find of what the composer was actually asking for, etc. And it could be that the sense that the actual historical sense was like, yeah, whatever. Just do whatever sounds good, do whatever works. And that composers often would just be changing stuff for people. Yeah, anyway. Now we have a section on arpeggios. These aren't so exciting. So I suppose I should read it so we can say we read the whole thing. 27 arpeggios. How are arpeggios to be sung? In singing arpeggios, the voice must pass with precision and firmness from one sound to another, whatever the distance between, neither aspirating, detaching, nor slurring, but executing the sounds as in playing the organ. Yeah, next door, the organ player is trying to practice as if he's singing. Anyway. Okay. So, nothing particularly to talk about there. And now, chromatic scales and passages. Do chromatic scales and passages require any particular attention? They do. They are only pleasant when absolute purity and firmness or intonation renders each note of the passage easy of instant comprehension. Dissonances timidly given produce the effect of false notes. In descending chromatic scales, we nearly always introduce too many sounds, showing that the intervals have been less than semitones. We facilitate a correct intonation by playing the notes on the piano and also by grouping them by 2, 3, and 4 tones and fixing in our memory the first note of each group. This note, which acts as a landmark, must fall on a beat. Chromatic scales must be studied very slowly and carefully for weeks and months, and even when sung in public, they must not be hurried if caterwauling is to be avoided. Okay. Just a weird section. This is just weird. I don't know why. There's no section on whole tone scales. But this is more, I don't know why this is in here. Seems to me like if you can't, you should be able to sing a chromatic scale. Anyway, 29. The messa di voce, repeated notes, etc. Are there different ways of emitting sounds? Answer. Besides being equally sustained in any degree of power, sounds may be swelled and diminished. They may receive inflections and may be repeated and detached. Will you explain these differences? Sounds of equal power sustain their initial strength with unvarying evenness. Pianissimo sounds, like pianissimo passages, can be sung with the mouth nearly shut. Swelled sounds, messa di voce, begin pianissimo and by degrees acquire increasing force until they arrive at their loudest, which should happen at half their length. Then the process should be reversed. Swelled sounds are indicated thus. At first, it is necessary to cut this exercise in half to swell a sound in one breath and diminish it in another. Is it possible to swell a note while passing on it from the chest to the medium or from the medium to the chest? It is very difficult, but once mastered, the change may be of great use to tenors. They may practice on the notes E, F, F sharp, G. What are sounds with inflections? Answer. These consist of a continuous series of small sounds gradually growing and diminishing individually, while the series increases and diminishes as a whole. There are other differences to be found further on. A free note under a pause is generally swelled and diminished. When long enough, though measured, it receives the same treatment. Oops. Apologies. Undulated sounds are each slightly swelled and diminished with a dying prolongation. What are repeated notes? A series of equal repetitions of the same note that otherwise would have been sustained. Repeated sounds, unlike detached ones, must be legato. They are obtained by articulations of the glottis, each producing a very rapid appoggiatura of less, if possible, than a semitone. Aspirations must be carefully avoided. Question. Is this sort of passage still in use? Answer. It was. Nowadays, a single repetition of a note is only heard. Question. Have you any other method of repeating sounds? Answer. The aspiration is employed, but only when one repetition is to be made. Detached sounds must cease as soon as emitted. They are appropriate only to brilliant voices. So, well, that's Geez, that's really interesting. Okay, let's try to unpack this. The messa di voce, and that's an interesting spelling there. Uh, Wait, let's look up. I just want to look this up. How is that normally spelled? Because sometimes word like messa, messa di voce, messa di voce. Okay, so that's how it's spelled other places too. Um. So yeah, there's that messa di voce. And this is like a super big deal, I guess. I still see people making a big deal out of this. But incidentally, usually beginners, and he doesn't recommend this for beginners. Is it difficult to swell? Okay, so to learn the messa di voce, he recommends first you just do a crescendo, stop. Now start over, forte, make a decrescendo. Now put them together. Okay, I guess. I mean, no, I don't mean to sound dismissive here, but I don't get it. I don't get the point of doing a crescendo, starting over, doing a decrescendo, and thinking of this as I'm training my messa di voce. So, someone explain that to me. I don't think anyone's in the chat. Y'all disappeared. Nobody showed up to my party tonight. I did announce it really late. And here he's saying asking if it's possible to do a crescendo or like a messa di voce that starts in what he calls the chest and then winds up in medium, or starts in medium and goes to chest. And he says it's really difficult, but once you mastered it, it could be of great use, especially to tenors. I can see that. But then it doesn't make too much sense. There's nothing. I mean, assuming that by going from chest to medium, and then this is also weird because earlier he said tenors are basically staying in chest, but now medium is happening at F sharp. And is this F sharp 4? Or is this like crazy high F sharp? Are we talking F sharp 5 and G5? Like, are these crazy high tenor notes? And he's saying these are useful for tenors who sing crazy high tenor stuff, like Bellini stuff that goes up to E5 and F5 and F sharp 5 and even G5. Maybe he's talking about that when he means tenor. That's he could be, because there's look at this this musical staff here. This is not in the tenor clef, which he shows in other places. In other places in the book, we've got, well, here, just under here, just down here, he's using this tenor clef. So why wouldn't he just use that up higher? Um, we could look up this Meyerbeer. Is this Meyerbeer a female voice or what? What's the oh? So I'm not sure exactly which octaves were in here with these. I'm gonna assume that's actually the higher octave, and we're like he's talking about. I'm gonna assume that here, right? He's talking about chest to medium, literally like going to falsetto, going from very, very, very highest that you can be in something like chest, and then going to falsetto. Maybe, I don't know. Tenors, for the most part, just don't even sing that high anymore. So we would assume that's E4, F4, F sharp 4, and G4, but it could be otherwise, actually, because their tenors sang really high. Okay, so I guess that's enough. Jeez, this is killing me. This, I don't remember Garcia being this hard to read. And then it'd be really great if someone could like record all these exercises for me. Just do that for me, will you? Just record yourself doing all this and show us. We can watch it here. But that it would be good to maybe do some things where we try to demonstrate how we think these exercises should actually go, and try to actually work with the exercises. What Garcia has meant to me was mostly the concepts. A lot of these concepts that he gives were extremely useful for me, like getting back on stage, getting back to singing. So 5, 10, 20, 23, we ended here. So yeah, that's that. I'll check in with the chats here. Oh, looks like. Well, that's very strange. There's more of you on on This Is Opera tonight than there are on Mr. Opera, which is very unusual. But welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. Well, let's and I don't know if you noticed, but my camera is totally stable, even though I managed to break the sound again. But it doesn't look as good, I don't think. So this is just like a cheesy webcam here that I have set up. Not as cool as my Canon camera, but way cooler in the sense that it actually works, and the Canon camera just keeps randomly crashing. So that was our little bit of new school singer stuff. Let's have some fun. Someone asked me to look at some Franco Tonelli videos, and I guess we're gonna have to do some. After watching it, I was like, oh man, because he's got a good reputation. I mean, people talk about this guy and they say he knows his stuff. So I was excited. I checked it out. Thought I'd take a look. And well, it didn't go all that well. So let's. Now I see Looks like the background music's a bit loud there. But I'm not hearing it at all. Background music. Let's see here. What is that? Well, now I can hear it. Okay. We got some light Parsifal in the background. So this is a video on circular breathing, which was a weird. Well, let's just watch a bit. Maybe I don't know if he's still saying this same stuff. Somebody's got to tell me if he's still telling people this that we have circular breathing and singing. Not to spoil it, but it's absurd. So there's gonna be some bullshit here. But let's. Okay, so this is Franco Tonelli. Seems like a cool guy, nice guy overall. But today we're only interested in what he's saying and if it's true, false, or just bullshit. Let me check that we've got our bullshit detector functioning. When I agree with something, that means it's true. And I push the button. I'm just kidding, by the way. That's a little bit hubris, but it's also how it is literally how we think. That when we agree with something, it means it's true. And we like to agree with true things. So, anyway. When something is untrue, we get this. And then when something is... It's not that it's untrue, or just that it's untrue. When there's some kind of intention behind it to deceive, even if the person saying it is one of the people that got deceived, then it's bullshit, and we get this sound. So I'm gonna reset this. Let's reset the count here. Take that away, and Mr. Tonelli, the floor is yours.
Caruso, this unique way.
Okay, whoa.
Appoggio circular breathing is unique in its own way. Though this exercise is taken up from sopranos and then mastered by Enrico Caruso, this unique way.
Wait, hang on, what? I don't know. Let's just let it go. Taken by sopranos and mastered by Enrico Caruso. We could be in bullshit territory here with just some random ass name dropping. I don't know where Caruso came. Anyway, we're just at the beginning. Let's give him a chance.
Of producing the sound without taking the breath, or at least you don't see anybody's taking the breath, so it's very fast.
Producing the sound without taking the breath. He did an edit there, so I'm sure he knows. Anyway.
Is one of the major techniques of appoggio. Those who are masters of this technique basically have the technique of 90%, even 100%, because appoggio circular breathing develops very strong diaphragm opposition of the muscles, the low abdominal diaphragm, the whole rest of the supporting muscles very strong. You can slowly reach.
Yeah, I don't know where to start here. Let's just start. Oh God. Oof. This is rough. Oh yeah, this is rough because he seems like so nice, and it's not nice to say bad things about people, but there's no circular breathing in singing. That's not a thing. So wow. Okay, so what circular breathing is if you play an instrument like the trumpet, The trumpet is powered by your lungs. Yes, but technically, even if you're inhaling, as long as there is enough pressure inside your mouth that's pushing air out, you can maintain the sound. You can keep the sound going. So what circular breathing is the player essentially keeping the note going with this tiny bit of like leftover pressure that they generate between the cheeks and the lips, and by collapsing the oral space, by collapsing the, I think they call it embouchure. But in any case, they're collapsing the mouth and using it like a tiny little battery of reserve air that they use to continue the sound. And that gives them just enough time to get air into the lungs and start the sound again. So they call it circular breathing, you see, because it works like, it makes like this circle, unbroken circle of sound. And you can, if you're good at circular breathing, you could keep a note going with a trumpet for 10 minutes. And every time you take a breath, you just cover it up with this circular breathing technique. You've used the air that's inside of your mouth, inside of your cheeks and stuff, and the muscles of your cheeks and mouth and everything to keep the sound going, and you take another breath. And so that's circular breathing. It's a technique for instrumentalists who have something to block the mouth with, and who have instruments that are powered by lung pressure, that can be very briefly powered by pressure generated in the mouth itself. So that's what circular breathing is. It has no application, relation, or anything at all to do with singing. That's so nothing develops regarding circular breathing vis-a-vis circular breathing. Circular breathing is not involved in anything to do anytime, anywhere in history, and at all. There's no circular breathing in singing. Yeah. And I feel bad.
The true appoggio in not just in phrases like this, but in long legato phrases.
Another interesting thing to note is that we have this word appoggio like it's a magic special thing, right? And support. Support is a special thing. But look at how Garcia used that word support. He might say something like support a note, and it's a musical thing. I am not sure that historically appoggio was this like super secret thing that people are passing down. I think it's more just like it includes all the different ways people make the sound. It's the air pressure part of their sound. Air pressure may be combined with posture or whatever, but still air pressure. Sounds okay. I wouldn't call this particularly robust coordination that you would necessarily use on the operatic stage as a tenor, but you could actually you could use this. It sounds like the velum is open. That's the nose. And although that makes it much easier to manage the voice, then I do caution that it's a little bit. It takes a lot of power away in order to make the voice more manageable. Typically, you'll see a much bigger mouth position in this pitch range for operatic tenor. I consider this to be a little bit anyway, but I don't understand the relationship to circular breathing. There's none. And then as well, we can clearly see the breathing going on every time. As one, I mean, if you do something that involves a change of position for the rib cage, there's going to be movement. You can make that movement fast, or you can make it slower, or whatever. Fine. And you can argue about what's better, fast or slow. But that all starts to go out the window when some other element is deciding how much time you have, like what the composer wrote. Anyway. Just to reiterate again, if you're doing this kind of mouth position that isn't getting a whole lot bigger in this pitch range, okay, and you can do some things with that, but the sound that you're looking for when you came to the Franco Tonelli video or whatever would either be covered and more robust in this pitch range, or would be open and more robust in this pitch range. And unless you're singing really quietly, you would expect to see a lot more of a mouth opening, and that mouth opening would be tracking with the pitch. Or whatever the scale was. If the pitch is going up and the mouth is closing, it may sound robust to you, but the physics of it are going to make it light, going to make it not robust. And that's just the way it is. It's not saying, we'll see in his next video, that it's not saying as long as you open your mouth, everything is going to work out fine. And you could... You could keep opening, or you could... I'll put it to you this way. If you look at the way I label things, I have these areas of interest. The area of interest that forms your oral cavity, shall we say, is area of interest number 5. Let's call that the area between the pharynx and the end of the vocal tract. And then area of interest number 2 is essentially the end of the mouth, going all the way to the middle of the vocal tract. So it's overlapping this area of interest number 5. And the end of this, if you want a more covered, more sweet, or more mellow sound, should be slightly smaller than your oral space. And for this more open sound, then the oral space should be slightly smaller than area of interest number 2. So when area of interest number 5 is more expanded than area of interest number 2, you can have this covered sound. And when area of interest number 5 is less expanded than area of interest number 2, you can have this more open sound. Assuming that you're going to be keeping area of interest number 2 on the larger side. When I want to make area of interest number 5 deeper than, shall we say, the level of my chin. So my chin is here, and if I just open my mouth, right, and I leave my larynx sort of neutral, I get this kind of position. Okay? And the bottom of my mouth here is at a certain level. It's about level with my jaw. If I do the kinds of things people refer to as breathing in the back or supporting from the back, tongue retraction, some people might say lowering the larynx, I say lowering the hyoid. If I do this kind of gesture, I can make the oral space actually, so this space just behind here, by pulling the trachea down and everything else, can wind up being deeper than what it is at the end. And that means that even though I can have a relatively large position like this, the end of my vocal tract can be essentially like a bulb. It's not like a megaphone shape. It's covered at the end. It's got this bulb. But then I have to take care to really lower my larynx hard, so that I make that depth. And then you'll see the tongue kind of getting yanked down really far and maybe bunching up. And that gives you that one sound. And then to make it more open, I'll get my tongue a bit higher than the level of my chin. But since I don't want to make my larynx go up, that means I'm going to have to get my chin really low. And the pitch limit winds up being really what I can do with my jaw without disturbing what I can do with my tongue. So I hope that makes sense. And then in both cases, what's controlling the breath is really the acoustics. The breath is being controlled by the timbre. That's what's slowing it down. As Garcia pointed out, well, sort of, but he misses his own clue. So that's how that works. And I don't think it works the way he said it works. So let's continue here. Well, I get it. I mean, and it sounds great. It sounds great. I don't understand how it possibly relates to circular breathing. fast forward a bit because this is just a lot of this. So it's, I don't know. It's a guy singing, and it says appoggio circular breathing on top of it, but so generally the way he's getting some, there's some metal in the sound, and the sound is pretty clear and ringing, and so that's not going to use a lot of air, and that's why he doesn't use a lot of air. There's no circular breathing. Yeah, so I guess that was it. That was circular breathing. Was basically him singing some kind of, okay, it's nice, light, and it said circular breathing on top of it for some reason, but there's no such thing as circular breathing for singers. Okay. Now we've got these quotes. Interesting from Horn.
Hi, voice students and teachers. Today I'm going to touch an important subject that I touched before as a position of the larynx. I always emphasized in my previous programs that position of the larynx is very important. And in classical singing, it should be a lower position of the larynx, so-called yawning position. I've talked about this in my previous programs. Today...
Okay. I mean, this is true. I don't know about the yawning. We can argue about that. Doesn't matter. But it needs to be said. I guess it shouldn't have to be said, but for some reason it needs to be said that in classical singing, one of the basic features of the genre is this dark sound color, and that this dark sound color comes primarily from the lowered larynx. That that's the classical sound. So if you don't want to sing with a low larynx, then I guess sing something else, because you're not going to enjoy classical. The sound of it is like singing with a low larynx. It's like, I don't know. It's like you picked something about ballet, like dancing on your tippy toes, and then you're like, should we have dancing on the tippy toes? Really? Well, how else are you gonna do point? That's what it is. Anyway, so yeah.
I'm going to give you an advice how to avoid dangers of the low larynx. And what are the dangers of the low larynx?
What are the dangers of the low larynx?
Let me just repeat what I said in my previous
laryngeal depression
about the importance of the lowering your larynx while singing classical music.
Yeah.
Lowered larynx is a must, and you saw this in the quotes that I gave you. These quotes can go endlessly.
And you know what I love about this, actually, and this probably I saw that he actually is into some other genres, and but this is rather enlightened. That he's saying it's a must for classical singing. For classical singing. Not that it's like a must, period. That there's anything objectively better about a low larynx other than it, like, it's what you need for this genre. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't give you Caruso's quote. There are many, many quotes supporting the position of the larynx as a yawned and lowered position. And
we don't need the quotes.
I'm not going to go deeper into this because I touched this subject in my previous programs.
Great.
I'm just reminding you also importance not only of the low larynx position, but importance of the stable larynx position. And the stable larynx positions is very important for those who want to pursue one register singing, because that position,
I guess, or whatever,
single position provides you with consistent ambience, and the consistent ambience will provide you with consistent sound. Why low position? Low position acoustically gives you more space.
But I haven't watched these other things that he's talking about, so I can't touch it. I can't. Ambience. I don't know what ambience is. It sounds like bullshit, but I didn't see it.
And stable position of the larynx is consistency. It's very logical also. If you sing in only one place, you have a consistent sound. But if you move and you sing in a different place, you will have a different sound. So the position,
no, that's not true. A lot of times, if you're changing pitches, because you're changing pitches, you're changing wavelengths. What wavelengths would fit? And you can't always just simply adjust the formant. And even so, when you do adjust the formant, you do so by changing the shape of things. So, it's not true. Let's hide the count here.
Position of the larynx.
And so but just to clarify, if I change the wavelength, for instance, that is required to get the same result, but then I don't change the shape of my resonator, I'm going to get a different result. Not because I did change, but because I didn't change. So it's not necessarily true that a stable larynx is going to make a stable sound. I do agree with him that a lot of times we're stabilizing the larynx. But the reason I would say that you stabilize the larynx is that you have a need to stabilize the larynx because some sort of force is trying to destabilize the larynx, and you need to reinforce the position so that it doesn't move from there. That's just thinking of stability in normal terms, like you would in building a ship or a whatever. Stability.
With consistency, color, a timbre, and a power, of course. In spite of the scientific evidence that the lower position of the larynx is a must for classical singers and a stable position.
I'm just going to put untrue. But it smelled almost like bullshit. There's no scientific evidence about what people need to do to sing opera. I mean, there's no like scientific definitions for classical music even. That's an artistic thing, not a scientific thing.
The larynx is a must for those who want to sing with one register, with one beautiful timbre. Some teachers avoid lowering the larynx, and let me explain you maybe the reason why they're avoiding it, and let me give you a solution, because it's an important. I'm going to demonstrate this also later in this program. How to lower your larynx and how to make a great sound. You see, when you're lowering your larynx, you only creating a possibility of a bigger and darker sound.
That's true.
Only possibility, because you just created a space. There's no sound yet. So when you start singing, majority of you who are not get used to this lower position of the larynx may feel that their voice is not projective enough, because their voice may.
I mean, okay, I mean, it can't be true or not. You may feel that, but I know what he's talking about here, and he's onto something.
Be sounding like a woofy one, and that's very true, because the only lowering your larynx is not enough to produce chiaro scuro sound.
What?
To produce.
Okay. Whatever it is that you're defining chiaroscuro sound as, and probably you're not going to, because this is Bullshit Inspector, and if you go looking for bullshit, you're always going to freaking find bullshit. But, okay. Whatever it is you're defining it, chiaroscuro as, lowering your larynx is not enough to do it. So, that's got to be true.
Produce the sound with enough squillo and enough darkness in it. You need a particular support. You need to adjust support to this lower larynx, because this position, the position that you support.
I think that's true. I think that my friends who sing contemporary things and who much more typically use a higher larynx position than I do, because it's part of their genre, they sometimes experiment a little bit with classical singing, and I've heard time and again that, wow, this is exhausting. This is a lot of support. This is a lot of work to make the energy to keep it going. And now some of that is just practice. You practice and things get more efficient, but also you get stronger. And I think that's true. It's absolutely true.
Before, with a little bit
more
higher.
It's more support energy than maybe you would be expecting if you're singing with a high larynx. And if you're trying to switch to a high larynx, then it can be weird how much less you're going to need to push to get a big sound with a high larynx, especially if you're trying to get a metallic sound with a high larynx versus a metallic sound with a low larynx. The high larynx version is easier.
Because this position, the position that you supported before with a little bit higher larynx position and support, is not going to work fully when you lower your larynx.
Yeah, that's true.
Then you need a deeper support. It's very simple analogically. Lowering your larynx feels
also
like
true.
lowering your breath.
Yeah, also
or
true.
singing on a very low breath.
Let's talk about why.
Let's
talk about why. Or maybe we should let him talk. Maybe I should talk. Let's let him talk about. Let's talk about why. Why would lowering your larynx feel like singing with the lower breath? There's 3 main ways that you're lowering your larynx. One is, shall we say, the infrahyoid muscles. These are the muscles that connect to the bone that's just at the top of the larynx. There are infrahyoids going to your shoulders, between your scapula, and then running through your neck and to your hyoid bone. You can use those to lower your larynx. There are infrahyoids going from your chest to the hyoid bone, just above your larynx. You can use those to lower your larynx. There's some going from your chest to your thyroid cartilage, so straight to the larynx, that you can use to pull down. There's also fascia, so like this weird solid tissue that attaches your diaphragm to your trachea. And that whole trachea can be pulled down. But as far as I know, that's actually also attaching to the hyoid bone. But in any case, you've got these three main ways that you can pull the larynx down, and one of them involves the diaphragm. And in order for that to happen, the diaphragm needs to be low to make this tension that pulls on. You can think of it as a rope that pulls the larynx down. And that's called tracheal tugging. I'm not making it up. You can look up the word tracheal tugging, and you can see that it's used to diagnose for certain medical conditions, especially in babies, because babies are not supposed to be able to lower their larynx. So if you see the larynx going down, you know it's caused by this problem that's creating a tug on the whole trachea, and that's lowering the larynx, and you'll see it going along with the breath. And then we also saw the quotes about breathing to lower the larynx, etc., and that all makes a lot of sense because the trachea is connected to the diaphragm. Now, the other way to lower the larynx that's worth adding, or the other thing to point out, is that there are muscles that are listed in your anatomy book as suprahyoid muscles, muscles that during the swallowing process might stabilize the larynx upward or might be raising the larynx, that don't actually raise the larynx during other conditions, like when the jaw is open, for instance. And then the other thing people forget is that if you're doing like a really big jaw opening, people forget that the muscles for opening your jaw, some of the most important ones, connect to the same bone that's at the top of your larynx called the hyoid bone. So that when you open your mouth a lot, guess what's pulling on your chin? It's your larynx. Your larynx is actually helping you to open your mouth, but this really open low larynx position is accomplished by different things that are physically able to pull the larynx down.
Move to practical things. I'm going to show you. I hope the camera will catch the difference between the sounds, but I'm not sure it will be so obvious. Nevertheless, I will try to give you the examples of the lower larynx when it sounds wrong, and examples of the lower larynx when it sounds right. And all of this is a cause of support. So don't be so...
That makes it sometimes not obvious how much of a volume change, for instance, has occurred when we change coordinations. Anyway.
Thinking if you lower your larynx, everything else is going to be just, chiaroscuro and one register singing, you become a great singer overnight. You need to study this position of the lower larynx, and you need to correspond with your support. Otherwise, you may end up singing with a low larynx position, but with a woofy voice, which is not very healthy and not very beautiful for acoustic singing.
I'll just point out one thing about woofy voice. So when we're talking about the woofy voice, another word people use is maybe the dopey sound.
This kind of sound, this kind of dopey sound. Well, people are worried that when they try to lower their larynx, they're gonna sound like this.
Now, the thing to know about the woofy sound is pay attention. Put your finger at the top of your thyroid cartilage and feel for the hyoid bone. That's a little horseshoe-shaped bone. That's, if you follow your Adam's apple, trace your way up, you'll feel there's some soft material where there's a little gap and maybe these two little horns. And you should be able to feel that between your thyroid cartilage and the hyoid bone, there's this little gap. And when you make
the dopey sound, oh, now I'm making the dopey sound. When I make the dopey sound, this gap between the hyoid and the thyroid cartilage gets wider.
But if I'm lowering my hyoid bone and basically smashing it into my thyroid, even if my here you can see my thyroid cartilage casting a little shadow down here. Yeah, so that's my thyroid. Well, it's coming up a little bit and making this little divot. But
here's a dopey sound,
and here's a non dopey sound. But actually,
these have about the same support.
Yeah, the real difference is that in this
non-dopey, in this dopey sound,
I'm not pulling the hyoid down harder than the larynx.
So when I pull this thyroid down harder than everything else, it separates everything and I have this dopey sound.
And that's how that works. That's how you get the woofy sound. And I guess that's what he wants to avoid. That makes a lot of sense.
So, practical suggestions and practical sounds. Let us see and hear the different larynx position in context of Arlequin's serenade O Colombina. And let's say the first phrase I will sing more lyrically, meaning that my larynx will be in a lower position but a relatively higher position, more in a lyric tenor position.
Interesting.
Colombina tenero fido Arlequin, ya te vicin. Let's start with the lower position of the larynx, singing the same phrase, but let's say without proper support. Oh, Colombina tenero fido Arlequin, ya te vicin. Though it sounds much better in a microphone, in the camera right now, the sound that will not carry in opera house.
That's how it sounds.
It's woofy enough.
Yeah.
It will
I trust
only
you,
carry
that's how it
if
sounds.
you have a mic. Then you will sound like a Caruso, maybe. But there's not enough squillante in a voice to sing that way. Now, let me show you the other way, let's say with the same low larynx but different support. So, changing it all together. Now, let's not confuse the style. The style, of course, is lyric, and what I'm going to demonstrate is not going to suit the style, but it's going to suit the sound. And so, let's do it again, this number 3, low larynx, but proper support. Colombina tenero fido Arlequin, ya te vicin.
Now, you know what I'm going to say.
This is the sound.
You know I'm going to point out that this mouth position is really different from this mouth position. Right? So the teacher can point out things, but also you can just pay attention yourself to whatever things you want to pay attention to, right? And if you're trying to reproduce these sounds or any sounds, pay attention to things like the opening of the mouth here, because whatever it is that he's telling you, it's what he does that makes the sound. And
relatively higher
if we
position, more in a
observe
lyric tenor position.
the sequence from so that was the first example. More regular mouth shape. He's not doing this thing where he was singing out the side of his mouth, etc., but a little bit more open. And the velum is open, so we can hear the well, I can anyway. I don't know what you guys can hear, but I can hear that the nose is slightly open.
Start with the lower position of the larynx, singing the same phrase, but let's say without proper support.
So now watch. Right, that's like half the mouth opening, and it's all off on one side. I'm not sure that makes a huge difference, but not a fair comparison, really. That's more open, slightly more open mouth shape, I guess.
Though it sounds much better in a microphone.
No, it doesn't.
The sound in opera house.
And now let's look at this.
Because woofy enough. It will only carry like a caruso. It's not
Let's look at
enough
this sequence now.
squillante in the voice. Now let me show you. Let's say with port.
Show us.
So changing it all together. Now let's not confuse the style. The style, of course, is lyric, and what I'm going to demonstrate is not going to suit the style, but it's going to suit the sound. And so let's do it again. This number 3, low larynx, but proper support.
But that's a much bigger mouth position. So you're not going to get from no matter what I do. You know, if I want this kind of sound, I need this kind of position. And I could reduce that, and it would help to reduce the mouth opening. Colombina il tenero fido arlecchine a te vicin. And that makes that, he calls it lyric. I call it light. And then for this inappropriate one, I would actually call that quite appropriate to Arlecchino. But if you're trying to make the difference between these sounds, especially focus on the mouth being more open. Oh, Colomina il tenero fido Arlecchine a te vicin. I don't know that it's inappropriate. I don't think it's inappropriate at all. Maybe I should audition for this.
This is the sound of chiaroscuro in a more dramatic version. So you see that there is a transitive way to go there. If you sing with a high larynx position, you sing more lyrically, you sound more like a lyric tenor or high tenor. But if you sing with the low position of the larynx, then you sound like Italian tenor, because there's one specific thing about Italian.
I don't know about this, but I would mention that one way to get your larynx lower is because it's attached to these muscles that go to the chin. If you just get the chin really low, it helps actually for getting the larynx down. And if your mouth is really closed and you lower your larynx, you're going to wind up pulling on the thyroid directly. And
You're gonna wind up with this dopey sound, right?
you can play with that a little bit by setting the opening of the mouth to something big-ish, shall we say, and we call this covered, right? And then yank down behind there. Oh! And you can use your lower back and everything. You know, you can flex your back a bit. Ha!
Calamina il tenero fiduar la a te vicin.
That's more inappropriate, I think, for Arlecchino. But in that case, it's working the other way. I'm setting the mouth opening, and then I'm lowering the larynx behind that as part of the articulation. If that makes any sense. But in no case can you have such a small mouth opening and expect to get a big sound. And in that sense, he's right to bring up that there's considerations that go with singing with the lowered larynx.
Tenors, regardless to where they belong, dramatic, lirico spinto, leggero, they always.
The question is, do we forgive him for the circular breathing bullshit that he pulled on us earlier? But I edited these videos together, so it's not like he tries to do the same on one day on his channel. And I don't know. Maybe we could ask him, like, do you still really think that there's circular breathing? Like, that's not a thing, right? And why did you make that video? But a lot of this stuff is really, really, really wise. He may not have all the answers, but he's got some good questions, I think, at least.
Scuro element. And that's its distinctive difference between Italian tenors and non-Italian tenors, regardless to the nation or nationalities. Chiaroscuro is always present with Italian tenors, while in non-Italian tenors, I'll give you a separate demonstration of the sound.
Okay. That's just, I don't know what that means. I've heard Italian tenors doing different things. I've heard some that are nasal in the middle range, like what he does, and then I've heard others that aren't, and there's no like definition of chiaro. He hasn't given a definition of chiaroscuro, so I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you go and try to figure out what chiaroscuro is, and the answer is gonna be like, take a lot of lessons with me or something like that. So,
if you like, higher position.
I do not think that there's any such thing as like you're a true higher lyric voice or something, therefore a higher larynx is going to be appropriate for you. It's kind of bullshit. The other thing to remember is that your sound doesn't care how high your larynx is based on what you feel high and low are. What is a high larynx? What is a low larynx? High means it's far from what? And low means it's close to what? Is it close to your chest? Is it close to your chin? Is it close to your ears? Is it close to your pharynx? What is it close to? Because that can change in many ways. So your larynx is high, right? And that moves your larynx closer to your palate. Okay. What if you move your whole head so that your palate moves closer to your larynx? Now you didn't raise your larynx, but you did shorten the distance from your larynx to your palate. Do you change the sound in the same way now? Is that the sound of a raised larynx, or is that the sound of a lowered palate? I don't know. So it depends what you mean. And I think lowered and raised larynx is so vague that really all it is confusing. You can shorten area of interest, number one, or you can lengthen it. And raising the larynx does shorten area of interest, number one, but so does shortening the neck, and so does opening the mouth more. And there are different ways to accomplish different things. So I think we need to start talking in terms that are a bit more objective and that don't change their meaning or change their importance so readily. And let me see. I hope the dog isn't. I could be. I got this dog in my lap, and I could be just.
And the next thing I know, I'm trying to talk to you guys, and it's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Anyway, so here's the dog. This dog is not making the cat very happy at all, but the dog is happy to be here. And yeah. Anyway, so that's yeah. What I was trying to get at, I guess, is that if we talk about area of interest number 3, instead of talking about the larynx, we could talk about where we're putting it. Not just is it low, is it high, where are we putting it? And then if we say, I'm putting area of interest number 3 really close to my chest, but I'm shortening area of interest number 1, then you just gave us information about what you're doing with your whole neck and head. Yeah. And those are acoustically significant, and I wish that's how we would talk instead of just lowering the larynx, etc. Oh, look at staring at me like, will you end this stupid live stream so that we can play already?
You see the difference?
Good sound.
Camera, unfortunately, doesn't catch the difference that much, but the sound is at least 3 times bigger.
At least.
And it's projective also. But it requires a certain support. So those who just follow the low larynx position and believe in that this is going to work, please take consideration of a necessity of support for this position.
Say like, well, I showed you a couple of strategies here that I used. So you probably want to have more than one support strategy if you're a tenor, and you want to be able to change rapidly between these strategies, even in the middle of a word or in the middle of one pitch.
Because if you don't support the low larynx position sound with proper appoggio, you may end up singing woofily, and then you need a mic. Bye until.
Franco, you should know better. Franco sings contemporary music as well. I think he knows that. Microphone or no microphone, the microphone doesn't save you when you don't have the sound. It doesn't make you sound like Caruso at all. Yeah.
Next time, Franco Tenelli.
Okay, so he's just doing some singing. So I would say that's a little bit on the very covered side of things, and a little bit on the pushy side of things. That play out music that he's doing, and then that the nasal passage is open there for that sound. This isn't what he was demonstrating so much, but it sounds nice. Anyway, so thanks for joining me today on Mr. Opera. Well, if you're watching this, then thanks for joining me not today, because almost nobody came today. It was a lonely day, but I don't mind because we got through more of Manuel Garcia's hints on singing. So this has been... wait, let me do some...
This has been Mr. Opera, just doing my craziness, my messing around here, messing around with all this. So, yes.
Yeah.
And, just it's a lot of fun playing with these things. Whoa, 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 whoa!
Oh, okay. Anyway. Yeah. So that's that. I mean, also...
Body. The energy extends past your limbs and becomes fire.
Woohoo! Yeah. And I had another one.
It's a fake.
Okay. So... I guess that's all for today. Hey, Christopher. You arrived at the tail end. I don't know. Just come back tomorrow. Yeah. I messed up my audio again, so first 15 minutes, I think there's like no sound from my microphone. But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll try to I'll set the topic tonight for tomorrow, so we get more time, I guess, to gather some viewers. Anyway, but you have a good day. I guess it's a day over there. It's the evening here. I'm gonna get ready for well, we're gonna go. Me and this guy are gonna go for a little walkabout. And don't lick my microphone. Why are you licking my microphone? Is it dirty? My microphone dirty? No? Well, why are you licking it? Why do you do these things? This is I would like to introduce you to the main character. This is the main character of all your lives. You just don't know it. But he is indeed the main character, and we are working on his excessive crying here. You can see he's got this problem with too many tears, and so that's staining his fur. But yeah, this is the cat's worst nightmare. The cat just wants to come and snuggle and eat food, but this guy is a little bit too enthusiastic about everything. So anyway, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna play my straw thing for you. Good night.
The straw.
It's just a straw, right?
It's not just any old straw. We've sized it very particularly, you guys.
So the SWT Straw Pro comes with a minimum of 40 resistance configurations in one device.
And then we have two straws that are the exact same size, diameter, and length. And this is so that we have options.
After you've practiced the exercises for maybe 5 minutes,
you'll see here that the vocal cords aren't in sync with each other.
You have to put more work within the body to just get things going because the straw isn't providing you with enough.
It is very important that you let no air escape around the straw between your lips or through your nose.
But the thing is with that, it cuts off the nasal resonance part of singing, which is very important to singing.
It's almost as if you're trying to release it out through the straw to whatever's in front of you.
You will find when you go back to normal speech that your voice seems to be coming out of your eyes instead of your throat.
If you are splashing yourself, you're creating volcanoes, and that is not allowed.
A wise man once said, "There is a sucker born every minute."
No. Oh, hell no.
So just grab a straw.
For those of you who talk several hours a day and your voice gets tired, here's a tip to keep you talking. Press your voice like this